Thank you. Let me ask Miss is Aftab, is that? And
Yes, sir.
Professor Sparrow, you did you commissioned the study, Miss Aftab, your organization, and then Professor Sparrow, you conducted the research.
I was part of a team.
Mike, please.
I was part of a team pulled together by the Brattle Group that took the job from
Right.
Wired Safety.
So, are you okay? Who paid for the study? Did your organization pay for it, Ms. Aftab?
Yeah, Wired Safety paid for it, and that was funded by the Poker Players Association of America and Harris. It was a pass-through on direct costs.
So the gambling industry paid for the study.
They paid for this. Well, they made a donation to Wired Safety. We paid for the study, but yes. Also, the retainer agreement with Brattle Group was very clear that there was no influence that was to be made by the people who were funding it.
No, I'm not.
Disclosures
I'm
to
just
who they were.
saying that it was paid for by the gambling industry.
It absolutely was. But our position
But-
on this, sir. Oh, I'm sorry.
Let me ask you this. You know, some of what you concluded, I'm looking at a study that was conducted, and I'm going to introduce it for the record. This is a letter I received December the 2nd, 2009, from a coalition of researchers at Illinois, the University of South Carolina, Notre Dame, Iowa State, University of Nevada, Emory University, Baylor, and University of Pennsylvania, and others and they make these conclusions, Professor Sparrow, and I just want to know if you would agree with them. This was part of the United States International Gambling Report. You're familiar with that study? Some of their conclusions, I'm going to go with their subtitle conclusions. Number one, new addicted pathological gamblers and problem gamblers caused by decriminalizing internet gambling. The percentages for teens and young adults has increased by 200%. Do you agree with that? Or do you think they were wrong in their conclusion?
I don't have any data either to support or refute specific figures of that kind. The experts on gambling addiction that we interviewed have reported that addictive gambling rates have been holding roughly steady at about 1%, not only in the U.S. but abroad for quite a long time.
I think that Annenberg also said that since the passage of our 2006 Act, that's when they leveled out, right?
Well, I believe I don't have the reports with me, but if I recall, there was a dip shortly after the passage of that.
So what we passed did cause a dip in.
It was in the
Internet.
public mind for a while, and then I believe it came back up again.
Yeah, it did. It did, in fact, come back up when the Treasury is not enforcing it. Let me say this. Number two, their second conclusion, gambling addiction is the fastest growing addiction among young people. Do you, Mr. Aftab or Ms. Sparrow or Mr. White, do you think that was correct assumption by these universities?
I think Mr. White is probably the best one to address that. I'm not an expert in
Okay,
other
Mr.
types
White.
of addiction.
Yeah, thank you. We do believe that gambling addiction is growing both among young and adults, although the rate still seems to be at roughly 5% of kids between the ages of 12 and 17 would meet criteria for, at least one criteria for a gambling problem in a given year. But again, the research we have to date seems to show that rate, while it does seem to be trending upwards, is still within the same 5% rate. It's a serious concern.
Right. Now, I noticed you're the National Council for Problem Gambling.
Sir.
And I think that the Harrods provided you with your initial funding for your online counseling service. Is that right?
I'm not entirely sure. Harris is one of our corporate members. Yes.
Right. Okay. And on their website, they talk about that they are one of your chief benefactors.
Yeah, they give us $5,000 a year. But yes,
Okay.
you're correct that they are certainly a longtime corporate member and
Okay.
formally
Let me say-
generous.
Let me ask you this. Some of the other conclusions, internet gambling activities exemplify the most dangerous aspects of gambling. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, we think that there are some of the features of internet gambling, as I mentioned in my testimony, high rate of play, use of credit or non-cash, the 24-hour access, perceived anonymity, and social isolation. Those are risk factors that are known in the gambling literature in general to be associated with problem gambling.
And if I could say one final thing. One of their other 5 conclusions was increased legalized gambling increases suicides by creating new gambling addicts among adults, young adults, and teenagers. Is that consistent with what you've found?
Respectfully, there are many drivers of the suicide rates. We've never found a correlation on a national level. On an individual level, pathological gamblers are much more likely than others to consider and commit suicidal behavior. However, as a small percentage of the population, it's hard to see that drives national suicide rates, which vary greatly by many factors. So problem gambling is certainly a concern for, problem gamblers certainly have major suicidal concerns.
Okay, thank you.
Gentleman,